The day begins very late as Junwoo finally wakes up. He finds a note left by his family. They had to leave quickly, it explains, but they made sure to leave him some money for groceries. Instead of heading to the store like he should, Junwoo is drawn to his computer. He decides to play video games online with his friends, planning to stream their gameplay. Their fun is cut short when another player in the game urgently tells them to check the news, saying something huge is happening. Junwoo immediately switches on the TV. The program he was watching is suddenly interrupted by an emergency broadcast signal. Then a news reporter appears on screen, delivering terrifying news. The apocalypse has begun. Just then, an emergency alert message flashes on Junwoo's phone. He glances out the window, and what he sees makes his blood run cold. The city outside is overrun with zombies. These creatures are attacking people, who are screaming and running in every direction in a panic. The streets are a scene of total chaos. Cars are crashing into each other, causing small explosions and adding to the destruction. Amidst the screams, he hears a little girl crying out for her mother. When the mother finds her daughter, a horrifying sight unfolds. The girl starts to bite and devour her own mother. Inside his apartment building, Junwoo can hear disturbing noises coming from the hallway. It's clear that the chaos and violence have spread inside too. He cautiously opens his apartment door and his neighbor, Sang-chul, bursts in, desperately begging to be let in. He explains that his apartment has been taken over by his zombified brother. Junwoo is initially reluctant and tries to push Sang-chul out, but Sang-chul fights back, blocking the doorway. Eventually, Junwoo gives in and allows him to use the bathroom, but makes him promise to leave immediately after. Turning back to the TV, Junwoo learns more about the unfolding disaster. The news reports that people are transforming due to a rapidly spreading infection across the country. The symptoms include aggressive behavior, bleeding from the eyes, and ultimately cannibalistic urges. Alarmed, Junwoo quickly grabs a kitchen knife. When Sang-chul comes out of the bathroom, Junwoo points the knife at him, noticing a strange scar on his hand. Sang-chul insists he is fine, but in that instant, his eyes turn blood red and he starts to convulse violently, his veins darkening. Suddenly, Sang-chul lets out a monstrous snarl and lunges at Junwoo, tackling him. Junwoo manages to fight him off, kicking him out of the apartment. After a struggle with Sang-chul's arm reaching through the door, Junwoo finally manages to slam and lock the door. Through the peephole, he watches in horror as a large zombie attacks Sang-chul and drags him away. Now, blood begins to seep under his apartment door. Completely terrified, Junwoo pushes his refrigerator in front of the door, barricading himself in. He desperately tries to call his family, but the phone operator informs him that connections are currently unavailable. Thankfully, he receives a text message from his mother, reassuring him that they are safe, but they can't come home. She urges him to stay inside and to survive. On TV, the reporter advises people to have enough food and water to last for 60 days. This news hits Junwoo hard, making him regret not going to the grocery store earlier. He starts to carefully ration his remaining food. To keep his spirits up, he writes "You must survive" on a sticky note and sticks it to a family photo. The next morning, a professor appears on TV, trying to explain the situation. He says the zombies are a result of a mutated viral infection that attacks the right side of the brain. Junwoo still can't make phone calls, but he sees a flood of messages on social media. People are desperately searching for their loved ones, posting their addresses and using the hashtag #alive. Hoping someone might see it and offer help, Junwoo takes a picture of himself holding a sign with his address and posts it with the hashtag #IMustSurvive. He also watches a disturbing live video online of a man hanging precariously outside the window of a very tall building, using a selfie stick to try and get a better phone signal. The video abruptly ends as the man suddenly falls to his death. The news report on TV then announces that people infected with the virus are asymptomatic for a few minutes before they transform into zombies. Junwoo decides to use his drone to get a better view of the other apartments in his building. He discovers that almost all of them are now filled with zombies. In a moment of panic, he accidentally makes a phone call to his father, which completely drains the drone's battery, forcing it to return. He then tries to distract himself by playing an online game, but the internet connection fails as well. Later that evening, Junwoo is jolted awake by a car alarm blaring outside. He looks out the window and witnesses a horrifying scene. A police officer is shooting at her fellow officers, who have all turned into zombies. Tragically, she runs out of ammunition. While she's desperately trying to reload, the zombies overwhelm her, biting her repeatedly before dragging her towards another street where even more zombies are waiting. Junwoo, in a moment of rashness, yells at the zombies to try and distract them. They pause for a second, but then quickly return to devouring the police officer. Suddenly, the large zombie from the previous day starts pounding violently on Junwoo's door. It manages to push the refrigerator aside and force the door open. Junwoo tries to push back against the massive zombie, but he's not strong enough. He makes a split-second decision and runs to the balcony, jumping over the railing. As the zombie tries to follow him, it loses its balance and falls over the railing, crashing to the ground below, while Junwoo manages to hold on safely. From his precarious position, he sees the horde of zombies from earlier and notices with dismay that the police officer has also transformed. After pulling himself back onto the balcony, he reinforces the door again, securing it as best he can. He then notices with despair that the zombies' intrusion has destroyed most of his already limited food supplies. That night, overwhelmed by fear and isolation, Junwoo records a video message for his followers, expressing his terror about the situation. By day 7 of his isolation, Junwoo, in a state of despair, starts drinking his father's liquor. He covers all his windows with colored paper, trying to make sure he can't be seen from outside. The TV news provides some slightly less terrifying information. The infection is only spread through contact with infected blood, so people can remain safe as long as they avoid bites and stab wounds. They also report that the zombies possess enhanced strength and senses, and some even retain the ability to perform simple human actions like opening doors or carrying out tasks from their former lives. Later, after seeing a tempting ramen commercial on TV, Junwoo impulsively cooks and eats a bowl of ramen, only to realize too late that he has ignored the sticky note reminding him it was his last meal. In his frustration, he accidentally knocks over his water bottle. He goes to the kitchen to refill it from the tap, but discovers there's no running water in the entire apartment. In desperation, he ends up sucking up the few remaining drops of water from the table. By day 10, Junwoo records another video diary entry, expressing his frustration with the repetitive messages on TV telling people to simply stay at home and wait. He feels desperate to leave his apartment, but the zombie threat outside is still very real. He remembers hearing about an emergency app that includes a radio function, usable with an audio jack as an antenna. However, Junwoo only has wireless earphones. On day 15, Junwoo, trying to cope with the isolation and despair, starts dancing around his apartment to music. Suddenly, he hears a noise that stops him in his tracks. He is shocked to hear his family's voices coming from a voice message. For a fleeting moment, he feels a surge of happiness, thinking they're coming back. But the happiness is short-lived as he quickly realizes he is hallucinating. The realization triggers a complete breakdown. He collapses onto the floor, losing all hope. Then he is startled by an actual voice message notification on his phone. It's a message from his mother, telling him to stay home. However, the message is filled with static and he can't understand most of it. Copying the idea from the video he saw earlier, he stands on his balcony with his phone and selfie stick, trying to get a better signal to hear the message, while zombies gather below, waiting for him to fall. Unfortunately, the message cuts out abruptly as he hears sounds of a zombie attacking his family, leading him to believe they might be dead. This final blow causes Junwoo to completely snap. He starts destroying everything in his living room in a fit of rage, but it's not enough to release his pent-up frustration. He storms out of his apartment and starts wildly hitting a zombie in the hallway with a golf club until it's dead. As he yells out for more zombies to come, he cautiously peeks around the corner and is confronted by a zombified Sangchul. Alone, Junwoo isn't afraid of just one zombie, but his yelling has attracted the attention of a whole horde of them. He frantically runs to the elevator and throws open the doors, only to have even more zombies pour out. Terrified, Junwoo immediately turns and runs, managing to hide just in time before the horde passes. After they are gone, Junwoo cautiously starts making his way back towards his apartment. Suddenly, a new zombie appears nearby. This one is blind, so Junwoo freezes and waits until it wanders away before quickly dashing back inside his apartment. As soon as he slams and locks the door, the zombies outside, alerted by the noise, begin to gather around his door. On day 20, Junwoo is startled by the sound of explosions and rushes to the window. He sees that parts of the city are being bombed. Thinking this is the end, he records a final video message, simply saying hello and goodbye before getting on a stool to prepare to end his life. While he waits for what he believes is inevitable, a laser beam suddenly shines into his apartment through the window. It points directly at the word no on a sign. Confused, Junwoo struggles with the rope he has prepared until he frees himself and focuses on the words the laser is highlighting. They spell out the sentence, "Don't be a moron." He looks out the window and sees Yubin watching him from her apartment across the way, using binoculars. Using hand gestures, they manage to agree to meet again at 7 in the evening. A quick glance into Yubin's apartment reveals she is incredibly organized and has a wide array of survival tools and supplies. She has even set up a booby trap by her door. He also sees her carefully sharing her water with her plant. The next morning, Junwoo oversleeps and finally peeks out his window at 11. Yubin, noticing he is late, takes pity on him and comes out to greet him anyway. Using gestures and typing messages on their phones, they exchange names and a few brief words. Suddenly, Yubin hears a noise and signals that they will meet again at 7. She grabs her axe and turns around to find a zombie caught in her booby trap. After a moment to gather her courage, she swiftly kills it. That night, it begins to rain. Both Junwoo and Yubin put out pots to collect rainwater. Yubin even places her plant outside to get some natural rain. While looking at Junwoo's building, she notices that the 8th floor seems to be empty. The next morning, Junwoo wakes up early, but he feels weak and unwell due to hunger. Yubin notices his condition and tries to throw a rope towards his balcony using a ball to add weight, but the ball falls short and lands on the ground. Junwoo decides to use his drone. He attaches some rope to it and sends it over to Yubin's balcony. Once the rope is securely tied on both sides, Yubin sends a bag of food and a note across to him, which reads, "Eat slowly." At that moment, Junwoo sees that the ball on the ground has been picked up by a zombie firefighter who starts pulling on the rope. The table on Junwoo's balcony, to which the rope is tied, is dragged across his apartment and slams into Yubin, knocking her unconscious. Now that the table is wedged against the balcony railing, the fireman zombie begins to climb up the rope. Junwoo frantically throws empty bottles at the zombie to try and stop him, but none of them hit. He then sends out his drone, flying it close to the fireman in an attempt to make him lose his grip and fall. The drone even manages to scratch the zombie's cheek. The zombie keeps swatting at the drone, forcing Junwoo to carefully dodge every movement. Suddenly, he hears zombies pounding on his apartment door, momentarily distracting him. The drone falls, but he quickly regains control of it. Unfortunately, the fireman zombie manages to grab the drone and destroy it, but just before he can continue climbing, Yubin regains consciousness and in a desperate move, cuts off his hand with her axe, causing him to fall. While Yubin examines her bruises in a mirror, Junwoo flashes a message on his phone to her, saying, "Stay strong." Sometime later, Junwoo realizes that his food supplies are dwindling rapidly and reminds himself that he must survive for his family. Under the cover of night, he prepares to leave his apartment. He carefully covers his feet and head to minimize noise and visibility. He steps out into the corridor, which is littered with bodies, including Sangchul's. Junwoo quietly takes Sangchul's keys while being cautious of a zombie nearby. He enters Sangchul's apartment and quickly gathers food from the refrigerator, headphones, a jacket, and walkie-talkies. Then he notices something under the covers on the bed. He pulls back the covers and finds a dead woman. At that moment, he is violently attacked by Sangchul's zombified brother, who tackles him to the ground. In a quick-thinking move, Junwoo uses the dead woman's body as a shield, giving him a chance to roll away and run. The zombie chases after him, but Junwoo throws a metal bar at it to slow it down. He then locks the door to Sangchul's apartment on his way out, allowing him to return to his own place safely. Back in his apartment, after having a quick snack, Junwoo cuts the headphone wires, intending to use the audio jack as a radio antenna. Sadly, the emergency radio app still doesn't work. He then packs the bag with a walkie-talkie and some of Sangchul's food and sends it back to Yubin using the rope system. They chat for a while on the walkie-talkies, offering each other support. Yubin reveals that she too had considered giving up. During lunch, they both prepare noodles at the same time, pretending they are eating together in each other's company. They spend the afternoon talking, and Yubin confesses that she is afraid of heights because she fell while climbing as a child. Suddenly, they hear a strange noise. At first, they think it's rain, but when they look outside, they are shocked to see every zombie in the area running in the same direction at the same time. They realize the zombies are storming through their buildings. The survivors quickly drop to the floor, trying to stay quiet. However, Yubin accidentally bumps into a shelf, and the noise attracts the attention of the zombies. A terrified Yubin believes it's the end, but Junwoo remembers that all the apartments are connected by intercom. He quickly calls Yubin's neighbor's apartment. The ringing phone diverts the zombies' attention away from her door. Realizing that staying on their current floors is becoming too dangerous, Yubin tells Junwoo about the empty 8th floor and they agree to meet there. Junwoo wants to make a plan, but Yubin, acting quickly, uses the table and rope to create a makeshift zipline. She jumps through her window and lands safely on the ground. The zombies immediately swarm towards her. She displays impressive agility and fighting skills, either running fast enough to dodge them or fighting them off with her axe. She even uses car doors as weapons. As she approaches the other building, she spots and grabs the police officer's dropped gun. The zombie jumps out at her, but before it can bite her, Junwoo appears and hits it with his golf club, saving her. Now working together, the duo fights their way through the remaining zombies, using abandoned cars as cover. They finally reach the entrance of the building, quickly close the door behind them, and rush into the elevator just as the zombies break through the glass doors. They reach the 8th floor and begin searching for an unlocked apartment. Suddenly, they hear a noise and realize there are zombies on this floor too. Yubin runs ahead to find an open door while Junwoo quickly blocks the corridor with furniture to buy them some time. Just then, a door opens and a masked man emerges. He pushes Yubin into his apartment and throws a gas explosive towards the zombies, creating a diversion so Junwoo can also run into the apartment. The man quickly locks the door. Yubin, still wary, points out that this floor was supposed to be empty. However, the man is surprisingly kind and offers them food and water. He then reveals incredible news. Because he is on such a high floor, he sometimes gets radio signals and he has learned that a rescue team is coming soon. Yubin and Junwoo are overjoyed by this news, but suddenly Junwoo collapses. The man has put a sedative in the water. Yubin, who only took a sip, is just dizzy. The man manages to tie her hands and drag her into another room, locking her inside with his zombified wife. Blood smeared on the walls suggests the wife has already eaten her own baby. The man pulls a rope from outside, which releases his zombie wife from some restraint. He explains that he's just trying to feed her so she can survive just like him. At that moment, Junwoo wakes up and points the gun he found earlier at the man, urging him to reconsider. But the man refuses to listen and drops the rope, freeing his wife completely. Junwoo immediately lunges to catch the rope. While the man frantically searches for a knife, Yubin continues to struggle against the zombie wife, who pulls with enough force to make Junwoo lose his grip on the rope. He immediately rushes to the door but struggles to open the lock. The man pushes him away. Yubin grabs a baby's blanket and smothers the zombie wife's face with it. The men become worried when they suddenly hear no more noises. The man finally opens the door and Yubin shoves his zombie wife on top of him, causing them to fall. The zombie wife bites her husband, who embraces her, saying, "I love you." Before he can transform, Yubin shoots them both dead. The gunshots immediately attract the attention of the massive zombie horde on the street, who begin rushing into the building. Yubin gives Junwoo the gun and tells him to end it all. At first, he refuses, but she convinces him that they should die as humans rather than becoming zombie food. Tears streaming down his face, Junwoo prepares to shoot, but just then they hear a loud noise. It's the sound of rescue helicopters finally arriving. Determined to survive, the duo throws another gas explosive into the corridor and pushes a few zombies out of the way to reach the stairs. Unfortunately, a large group of zombies quickly pursues them and grabs Yubin. She fiercely defends herself with her axe, and Junwoo grabs a bicycle and uses it to block the zombies, allowing her to crawl out from under the pile. Junwoo urges her to go to the roof while he holds off the zombies. Yubin quickly makes her way up the stairs, but she can't see any helicopters yet. After a desperate struggle, Junwoo manages to push the zombies back down a few steps and runs upstairs, using ladders to block the roof door. When they realize the helicopters are not immediately visible, despair sets in, and Junwoo yells, "We're still alive," as they both break down crying. Suddenly, the zombie horde bursts through the roof door. Junwoo opens fire with the gun, but only manages to kill a couple of creatures before he runs out of bullets. Thankfully, a helicopter finally appears in the sky. Soldiers inside have enough firepower to keep the zombies at bay, while Junwoo and Yubin quickly climb into the chopper to finally escape the city. Once the helicopter leaves the city limits, Junwoo's phone regains signal, and he receives messages from his family, confirming they are safe. Looking back at the devastated city from above, Junwoo remembers all the social media posts he saw from survivors waiting to be rescued and imagines his "I must survive" hashtag being changed to "alive."